start. Hello, everyone. Good evening to you all, and thank you for joining with Colombo Type 9. I'm Malindi, your host for the day, and today I have got a very, very interesting topic for you all. Today we are going to talk about Sri Lankan lorry decorations or Sri Lankan lorry art. I'm pretty sure you have seen those beautiful, like typographic and colorful lorries on the either sides of the road when you go, and if you are a designer or a design student like ourselves, you might have had a second look at those vehicles. And there's someone today, we have invited someone special today who has gone beyond just a second look and had done a bit of a research on this beautiful art form. We have Leyanvi Mirando today. Hello, Levi. Hi. Welcome to Colombo Type.
Thank you.
Levi is an amazing person, an amazing designer. She's an art director and a publication designer at MullenLowe, and she's a graduate at Academy of Design. And I must say that she's also an active member of Akuru Collective. I think, in fact, we met through Akuru Collective. And the research that we are presenting today, this was your final year research, I guess. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you first presented this through Typo Day 2017. Is that so?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That was my first
so from 2017 to 2021, I am pretty sure you have some new materials. I saw a sneak peek of the some of the materials that you have, so I'm really excited to see the rest of it, and I'm pretty sure everybody else is excited to know what you have got here. Without further ado, let's get into the discussion. But I need to say this because we both are we are interested in this subject, but we both consider ourselves students, not experts in when it comes to design or anything related to the art of painting or art, the lorry decoration. So if any of you who are watching us have any suggestions or points to bring out or any questions to ask, please use the live chat, and we will try to get answer most of your questions, or read out all your suggestions during the live streaming. With that said, Levi, let's get into this project. So I must be honest with you here. When I first got to know about your project, that you were doing a study on lorry decorations, my first reaction was like, oh my God, why didn't I think of something like that? Because this is so unique. This was a so unique topic to talk about in the design community. We do not come across these kind of vernacular graphic topics in as often as it should. So how did you come up with the inspiration? How did you come up with the idea to do a study on these lorry decorations?
In one word, I'd say traffic. But if I may elaborate a little bit, it was college. Obviously, I was a graphic design student, and I had my first typography class, and I used to travel back and forth from Negombo to college. Because of that, I was traveling the bus, so most often it's like those pre-highway days. So it was a couple of hours on the road every day. So I guess we'd be like in Paliagoda, it's a major crossing point. So when you're stuck in traffic, these things would be like, right next to you on the bus or in front of you. So I guess you start noticing boards and stuff after you kind of learn a thing or two about typography. And then this happened, and they were so loud. And at one point, I was like, how did we miss it for so long? Because that's so colorful. They're in 3D and all of that. So yeah, that's how I came about it, actually.
So you started photographing those vehicles while you were traveling? Was that the starting point?
It was a starting point, and then also then third year of college happened, and I was looking for a dissertation topic, and I thought this would fit perfectly. Or rather, I thought it will, so I kind of researched, and it did, so I'm happy.
So was your intention in getting into this study was just like academic intention, or just what was it? Was it typography that got into doing this? Did you have like a preset output that you wanted out of this study?
No, no, I really didn't. But I'm really glad there was an output at the end. But when I got into it, it was the 3D letters that drew me to it. But also, if you like take a second look at all this, there's so much art and culture and little motifs that like surround us in our temples, in the churches, and all of that kind of incorporated into this one lorry. Like the surfaces, they really outdo themselves sometimes. So I was just so those were the things that led it to be a project at the end of the day. But the starting point was obviously not that.
Yeah. So let's start, Levi. If you have any photos, let's start sharing those things while we are going
Sure.
through this discussion. So, culture in unconventional places. Wonderful topic, because in our preparation discussion, you brought out the fact that don't want to talk about just typography or design in this subject, but you wanted to emphasize the heavy cultural aspect of this artwork. That's why we came up with the name culture in unconventional places rather than saying Colombo Type 9 Sri Lankan Lorry art. So let's
Yeah.
start. How does culture has become an identity in these vehicles? How do you go about that?
So, I mean, what they use the typography here for is sort of they express culture through the typography here, and obviously all the other decorations that come through it. So
Mm-hmm.
this is just a picture of me all the time whenever I'm on the road, either driving or in the passenger seat, just trying to get as close to these lorries as possible to take a picture. But like you see here, from all sides of these lorries, they start saying things to us. They are so illustrated, some of it. So there are different layers to it. Some of it is as decked out as you see right now, but there are other instances where some lorries are really plain as well. And it's such a
Yes.
colorful scene when you see all of these together.
Yeah. So each of these vehicles have their own set of like elements. Can we identify or categorize them with, like, looking at a vehicle or looking at a lorry? Can we sort of identify them belonging into a certain culture or a identity or a geographical locations, that sort of thing, with the
Yes.
elements they have used, the colors they have used?
Yes, you can. So there are a couple of examples here of that, right?
Okay.
So before I get to that, I'd like to say that there are so many elements to observe in one of these lorries. So
Right.
overall, it might look something like this. Some actually go into the extent of decorating the cabin. So this is the roof of a cabin, the interior of a cabin, and then you see the lights, the railing, the grill, everything is sometimes decorated. And then to answer your question, so these are some of the evidence that I have to show that they do emote like their identity culturally through their lorry also. So you find different illustrations that are aligned with different religions and different ethnicities and communities that are in our country. Um, and sometimes there you can see a mix of them together also.
Yes, like there is this the image of the Jesus Christ, and then along with the Hindu element
Yes.
in this.
So if you ask them why that is, it's most often to do with where the lorry was built, the body was decorated. So according to the driver of this lorry was decorated in Jaffna, at a workshop in Jaffna. So
Mm.
most decorative elements used in this lorry is of that influence. But the owner's faith, he's a Catholic. So then they integrated Jesus' image also into it because of that.
Yes, it's a very beautiful merger between cultures, I think.
Yes, It
So
actually is, and it's like quite different to what you kind of see out there. When you go
yeah,
into PETA, all these lorries of different, like, owners or ethnicities or everything emoting different backgrounds, they all, just line up together. And this very recently, I found this one too, the
hmm.
2020 lorry.
Yes, it's what is interesting about this is actually that I see a little bit of influence of the internet in these the first image, the Iron Mizzy lorry, like the chords and the way they have decorated that section of
Yeah,
the lorry.
yeah, like the quotes kind of like lend itself to, like, I guess the tuk-tuk quotes also. Like
Yeah.
you see, failure is not a word except life sort of tuk-tuk quotes out there. But I guess this is somewhere like they put it all together.
Yes.
Um, but
So
yeah, so this,
there are religious identity and the cultural identity. There is like beautiful merger between them in the same vehicle. But since these vehicles, as I know, they travel throughout the country, so it's
yeah.
not like do they have like if a certain vehicle is from the coastal area, do they have elements of the coastal culture on their designs, or is it just like again a merger of all those things?
So I think so. My research for the moment has been in Nigambo and towards the Chilau and Waikal area and PETA. So PETA is like a hub. You see different lorries from different areas coming into that place. I you don't see, like, you can I couldn't I so far I wasn't able to identify a lorry saying, oh, so this is from down south, this is from, but you can definitely say this is from, possibly from Jaffna, because, and that's also not only because of the decorative elements to it, that's also because they go ahead and kind of how do you say, they write out the places they stop, like transport places they
Yes.
stop at their journey. So they'd say Colombo, Candy, Polonaru, or something like that. So
Yeah,
that's
there
also
is
how
Colombo
they,
or Yardi thing in the
yes,
below.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So okay, I will come back to this, but yeah. So I guess the okay. So this also is, maybe I can explain it better here in terms of geographically.
Yeah.
Uh, so these garages, the workshops that these chassis are being built on, are also
Mhm.
from varied places in Sri Lanka.
Mm.
So I guess that also lends itself culturally to, like, so I think the painters and the people who work in the workshops are from that area, from those cultures, so they kind of integrate those elements into it
Yeah.
when they're decorating the lorry as well. And I always find it really interesting that each of these workshops have these different logos made for themselves, but they also are mostly within this one color scheme.
Yeah, and the banner and the whole structure of the logos kind of seems to be in a similar line
Similar,
here.
yes, yes. So I know we are digressing from your point of, like, whether it's geographical, whether that's like evidence to show that geographically does it change. But so far, I'd like to, I haven't seen it like that so far.
Yeah. So
But
the particular lorry could be, decorated in Arachikato, so it might not essentially have like the cultural elements of batik cloth.
yes.
That's what
So
we,
yeah,
yeah.
for my dissertation, when I interviewed one of the workshop owners, and I asked him, like, who dictates what goes on one of these lorries, what he had to say was that it's sometimes the owner of the lorry who will say, okay, put these colors or don't put so many. So they'd
Hmm.
have an opinion. But what he says is most often they don't have an opinion on what to say or what, how to decorate it. So then I think it's at the discretion of the painters that the workshop has.
Yeah. Now let's come into the important part of this, the design and typography elements that you can find in here. So when you are painting or decorating a vehicle, it's not the your common square or the rectangular canvas that you are working on. You are working on with the shapes and the forms of your vehicle. um, so uh, how do you see like the the uniqueness of these designs and typography?
So
I think let's start with the typography here, because it's kind of like the main attraction in these decorations. What's the role of typography in these Lorry paintings?
I think the role of typography would be a functional one, I'd say, to sort of say who owns the lorry. And so these might be the initials of the owner of the lorry, for example, right, of the business, right? And most lorries, more often than not, is just the name. What's highlighted is the name of the company,
Mm,
right? What transport it is, or something like that. But the interesting thing is what they do with that space of, like, so you have three words saying Sandamali whatever transport, and then they go into each letter and they decorate each letter around it along with the entire lorry. So
yeah,
there is more of a functional purpose to it, but it's more decorative actually. There is no purpose in typography because I don't see them playing around with the shape of the characters so much. It's most often than not a 3D type.
yeah. So they
And
do not change the structure of the letter. They are
no,
not
they most
in their
often
own
than not
font.
retain the structure. Like you'd see like you wouldn't. I'm yet to see a cursive font on this, but you'd obviously see them squiggly or, like, warped in some way. That you might see, but I don't
Yes,
see them actually experimenting with the actual form of the type.
yeah. So this is a picture of one of the artists behind this work, right,
Yes, so
Levi?
this is a workshop in Baikal, so Gratian and Sons workshop actually. So this was a young boy who was employed there as a painter. And when I'd ask them, so how do you know to draw what font? Then he went on to say that they have, guides like these, the Australian students' lettering book, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So inside, so they pretty much copy, like what they do is they just size these up as they want and then start painting inside the letters.
Hmm. So
Um,
it is not. Uh, the, are there any self-expression elements into this painting? Because in these little sceneries that they have painted, can we say that they are self-expressions of this artist, or is it just again something that they have referred to from somewhere else?
so it's definitely expression, and this is like the one dying question. This is what I keep asking the drivers I meet, the workshop owners I meet. So there is no definitive answer to this. It's somebody's expression for sure, but I
Yes.
don't know whose it is, and they are also not very vocal about, oh, why we did. There's no specific reason behind it, because, like, okay, in these silhouettes that you see right now may relate to what we see in Sri Lanka, scenes that we see here, but
Hmm.
sometimes you see trees that are not kind of seen in Sri Lanka, like pine trees, something like that. So I'm guessing in that sense it's a reference image all the time that they
Yes.
refer to. So sometimes it's those, sometimes it's patterns built in and no art in it, no illustrations rather. It's a mix of stuff.
Yes, a very interesting color palettes that they are working on here. Many colors, bright colors that they have used.
But then
And
you have this one in the middle, like some have a really muted color palette also sometimes, like decorative but still muted, and some go all out.
yes, so is it these colors? Have they evolved with the time, or throughout the history that they have stick to this color palette? Shall we talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so what again from my research, one of the workshop owners had told me was he's, I think, one of the pioneers. I actually had the chance to speak to Gratian and his son in that sense. But what he told me was that as soon as we started the open economy, or right before that, we had limited colors of paint coming into the country. So then it was mostly 3D letters made out of black, white, and yellow.
Hmm.
And then as imports started coming in, we then start adding the layers of the
Yeah.
colors to it.
Hmm.
That's the history that I could so far find out about the colors.
Yeah. Speaking
But
about the
mostly
layers, yeah. Speaking about the layers, there are so many layers, even in one letter. So many decorations that goes into these letters. So I have to ask this question. This is an inevitable question, I guess, because everything is digitized in this era. So how do you see the transition? Do you see them these art forms being transformed into digital format, or how do you see that going about?
sadly, I have seen it transform.
I guess
So
this is a
yeah,
picture of a digital sticker. Kapila.
it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is, but it's still a little different to what you see on buses on the road.
Yes.
Because I think buses are more elaborate. So this is just one comparison I made. Just
You
but
can see all the
then we
layers. They have lost all the layers there.
yeah, and then we kind of have transitioned into these while we
Yes.
still retain some form of layering. I suppose I feel like it's losing its craft a little bit. Because
Yes.
even in a digital format, it's not easily replicated. Somebody has to sit and draw all the layers, the highlights, and the shadows of the type. So I get
Yes.
it looks a little bland and flat when you don't do that and take a shortcut, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess digitizing anything is for the sake of doing it, easily doing it in less time, but
Quickly.
yeah, quickly, and then we have
And
to
in this
sacrifice
case, I
all
think
those.
it's also economical. Sorry.
Yes. Um, this is also interesting. I'm just looking at it. I trying to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, so you see the Eiffel Tower there also. I'm sorry, it was a pixelated picture to begin with, and I took this at like 6:30 in the morning, which is why there's like such bad lighting in it. But they've tried with the 3D for sure, and they've tried to mimic the drawings with pictures from all over the world. But I feel like it still falls short, in my opinion.
Yes.
Of course. Um, and then we have this.
This is a full-on sticker, right?
This particular truck was full on stickered. So I guess so in the terms of transition, it initially came, so the body was initially, they started off building it with teak and wood, right?
Hmm.
And I think when that kind of started getting expensive, they turned to painting on the containers. But now I think I've seen a few which mix both together, like you spray paint, like have a section spray painted and a section stickered. And there were, I'd say, I'm happy to say that there were only a few of these, like very few, to make a difference yet, but they were still there.
Yes. Now, looking at these pictures, I guess it's important to talk about like this is sort of a beautiful art form, something that as Sri Lankans we might want to cherish. So how are we going to let's talk about the importance of conserving these art forms, because I feel like this is something we need to conserve for the future. Just the details that goes into it, the design aspect of it, everything. What are your opinions about that?
I'd say most definitely because I mean, as a creative person, I'm just drawn to it because of its color and what it depicts most often. And the fact that when you looked a little bit more about it, that it kind of said so much about the people who own them or the workshops that build them, and how they very nicely integrate all our cultures into this mix. And it's a sight to see. I mean, PETA, if you say take PETA for example, it's such a bustling space with so many people going about their day. It's so busy. And then with that heat also, there's so many of these colorful lorries there, all sitting next to each other. And in a certain sense, they are all like different ethnicities, just like, sitting next to each other there.
Yeah.
And then to go about their own way across the country. So it's I for sure it needs to be preserved, but I think I would understand also why it has declined over the years, because I think it's very expensive to make one of these lorries, especially in wood.
We have
And
a
that
question.
and it
We can
also
come
is
to
very
this
time
part.
consuming.
Yeah, we
Sorry.
can come. We can talk about this with the Ravin Lianenge's question here. He wants to know why have the owners moved into digital prints. So that goes along with the fact that it's kind of has become very expensive, isn't it?
It's I think it's time and expense, right? And if people aren't doing this enough, I guess the workshop owners can't afford to keep artists employed under them to do
Yes.
these paintings. So I'm guessing like people are looking for alternate options of employment as we speak. So, which is probably one way of looking at it, because now there's actually a lot of like these mergers where you see sticker and paint both together.
Yes.
So affordability, because it's just a ballpark figure, but one of the drivers said it almost takes about 75 lakhs to get one of these done up like this. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's only for the decorative part, to build the lorry and to paint it. So that's a lot of money. So
Yes.
I'm guessing it's why people are moving on to a more digitized format, because stickering is always so much cheaper.
Cheaper. But then again, there is the fact that we are losing all these beautiful design elements there. So
Yeah.
coming back to the conservation of this art form. Thank you, Levi, because you are taking the first steps into conserving this art, because awareness is actually how we, start a conservation process. So, through this research of yours and sharing this research with all of our audience, it's what you're doing actually. So, thank you for that. And I before wrapping up the session, I want to ask you what are the future expectations for this design, because you are always involving and finding new the material for your study. So let's talk about what's in the future for this project of yours.
So, I mean, for me personally, like you said, so I mean, yes, to preserve this, we have to know about it and see it. So, I'm guessing if more people kind of admire the art form, they might move to preserve the art form. But even if we have to, at the end of the day, like everything, move towards a digitized format, for me personally, I'd like to see how we can transition this into a more complicated font, at least like if you were making something like for all font designers, I'd say like if we were to attempt to make something like this, which I did in college. It was a failed project obviously, because college. I did it in such a rush, so yeah, obviously my lecturer gave me the eye for it. um, but so if we were to attempt, like I'd like to actually sit and try and craft something that is equally worthy of our attention digitally, if at all. um, and I don't know, so I mean, archiving this for now is what I do currently. It'll be interesting to see if this could actually be a bit I mean, there are a lot of so in India and Pakistan, there are a couple of short films made on this art form, because they also have a lot of truck decorations, a little different from us, but still very, very decorative. So I'd like to actually, hopefully, one day make a short film about it too, or maybe somebody else does it if they are interested in this also.
So there's an opportunity for collaboration.
Yes, definitely.
If anybody wants to get involved with Levi and do this, continue this research, then there is opportunity there. So we have a question from Kausala. Hi Levi, I have seen a similar art form practice in India as well. Which similarities or differences you find in the practice here and the scenes in India?
So I only did a very, very brief research for this during my dissertation, but from what I found at that time was that there's more, they were more dependent on pop culture. Like they'd have painted figures of people of like Shah Rukh Khan or like popular actors and actresses on them. And even though they also do very colorful typography, the the I think it's unique to Sri Lanka when they start painting within the letter fonts. Like we almost use it like a comic strip. So I guess that's the uniqueness that I've only seen here. Like because there are truckers there's a form of truck art in Japan as well. They do like all forms of very funky interiors and exteriors with a lot of lights and stuff. But it isn't this level of craft within the type I've only so far seen here, and India to an extent, but still not within, like not drawn within. At least I haven't seen it so far.
Okay, we don't have any more questions, and with that note, I guess one last question I want to ask is, since this was yours project, like a academic project, do you have any tips for students who are crafting a unique design project like yours or working with vernacular designers? Any challenges that you faced you want to share with our audience?
So in the student phase, okay, one interesting thing that happened was I was lucky enough to be taught by Professor Asoka in college for art history, and he used to take us to all of these temples, right? And we did a study on the temple decorations a little bit. And when I started researching on this project, and you started seeing the similarities quicker then when you kind of keep your eyes and ears open and it sort of all falls together. So that was a nice thing that happened. And in terms of challenges, so to research and kind of go out there, you need a bit of like, you had to travel, you had to go to PETA. It's not always pleasant. So I have a lot of friends who helped me, who drove me to places, who wake me up, they like go with me at 6 o'clock in the morning and all that. So yeah, get a lot of friends, get your friends interested in what you do, and keep your eyes and ears open.
Yeah,
And
we have one. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a very good advice, I guess. But we have one last question from Chani. Going into digital performances, no doubt, we have to look at preservation of matters as such via screen platforms too. What is your take on further preservation of manual through digital?
Of manual through digital. I think if I get her correctly, I'm hoping I do. I'm thinking it's a way of, I guess, crafting these equally well digitally, so that we preserve it that way, and like maybe integrating this, like this is just off the book. Like I said, we use this as a comic strip, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's an interesting way of looking at storytelling. Like could you do scenes from like little artistic these things from like Shakespeare maybe in it, like a storybook. Can this turn into like a story format? So the words and the images could say something. I don't know. I'm thinking that. I'm hoping I answered Chani's question. I'm not too sure, but yeah.
Yeah. And you already have some sort of a collection, like it's a conservation of manual things through digital. You have a collection of a lot of photos that you showed me the other day, and I think you have now.
Yeah, yet to go into like a page.
Yes. Something like that, you can start doing that. I think most of our everybody in our audience would love to see that. With that, let's wrap up Colombo Type 9. Thank you, Levi, so much for joining. I have
Thank
been
you
trying
so
to
much
get
for
you
having me and bugging me to do this.
I'm glad that that you have finally agreed to do this, and I'm pretty sure our audience will be glad as well, because this is a very interesting topic to talk about. So thank you for you all for joining with Colombo Type 9 as well, and see you next time on Colombo Type 9. Good night.
See you guys.